Anti-inflammatories and pain meds, anti-inflammatories and pain meds. By the way, 12 women a week in the United States die from overdoses of pain meds that were prescribed by MDs. That's how bad this problem is. Because when you just treat the symptom, you're never, ever, ever going to fix it. When you just treat the pain or just throw anti-inflammatories at the body and keep your fingers crossed, you're never, ever going to get to the root cause of the disease. And people will suffer and suffer and suffer, and then they die. And this is supposed to be the best medicine in the world. Well, guess what? It's not. It's reductionistic nonsense. And the best possible thing you can do if you've been diagnosed with fibromyalgia is fire your medical doctor. Because they have juvenile diagnostics and no treatment. It's unbelievable. Oh, by the way, this doctor is, that cat is for a CAT scan. Well, I have to lighten it up somehow. Now, fibromyalgia occurs in animals that eat grains. Fibromyalgia occurs in animals that eat grains. When fibromyalgia happens in sheep, it's called stiff muscle disease. When fibromyalgia happens in calves, it's called white muscle disease. When fibromyalgia happens in pigs, it's called mulberry heart. And when it happens in humans, it's called fibromyalgia. And it is nothing more than a simple deficiency in the mineral selenium, period. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with nutrient deficiency diseases, think about this. If you don't have enough vitamin D like David, you get rickets. If you don't have enough vitamin C like Charlie, you get scurvy. If you don't have enough iron, you get iron deficient anemia. Well, if there's not enough selenium in your body and sulfur-bearing molecules, selenium mostly, and a few sulfur-bearing molecules, you get fibromyalgia. It's that simple. So let's call Dr. Wallach up, and he can talk us through the rest of it. So if you bear with me here, I'm going to dial Dr. Wallach in. So let's take 30 seconds, chat amongst yourselves. I'll be right back. Let me adjust my microphones, and we're going to see if this works. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I already gave the house a nice little resume of your accomplishments, Doc. So now we're up to fibromyalgia as a selenium and sulfur-bearing molecule deficiency, and that when it happens in pigs, it's called mulberry heart, and when it happens in sheep, it's called stiff muscle disease, and when it happens in calves, it's called white muscle disease. So walk us through the rest of it, starting with what you did in Kaishan province with Milan.
Okay, well, just before we get to that, when you find a lamb that's born with this, you find a calf that's born with it, you give them an injection of selenium, and in 15 minutes they get up, walk over, and start nursing. And the recovery is like almost instant. Kaishan disease is a disease been known for a long time. Initially, the Chinese thought that was a toxin from stored grains, exotoxin as a result of mold overgrowth. The British and Europe thought it was a virus. American pathologists thought it was a virus. But the United Nations sent in during the 70s, they sent in a team of pathologists, including one veterinary pathologist, and in the first couple of autopsies they did on kids that had died suddenly of Keysham's disease, this cardiomyopathy, sudden death, heart attack. The veterinary pathologist said, "Oh, I know what that is." He said, "I see that in animals all the time. That's a selenium deficiency." So they did the chemistry on the tissues and the blood, and they found, yeah, these kids are deficient in selenium. They examined the soil to the agricultural university. Sure enough, there's no selenium in the soil. And at that time, 13 out of every 1,000 kids were dying of Keysham's disease, sudden cardiomyopathy, heart death. There were also hundreds of them per 1,000 that would get the disease, but they wouldn't die. They were disabled. And this was published. Everybody knew, even the World Health Organization knew it was a selenium deficiency. Well, in 1977, I discovered the first non-human case of cystic fibrosis. It just happened to be at the Yerkes Primate Center at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia, where I was working as a pathologist at that time. And I'm sure it's been around for a while, but nobody ever recognized it until I did. And did all the research, did all the chemistries, went back to 5 unrelated monkeys of the same age in a gang cage and did liver and pancreas biopsy. Sure enough, they had cystic fibrosis also, agreed to by all the experts in pathology from Harvard University, Chicago Langham Hospital, hospitals over in Europe. They all looked at, yeah, this is cystic fibrosis. And then when I told them it was actually a non-human primate, because I kept that from them at first, I didn't want that to interfere with their thinking, because if they thought it was a non-human, they would say, no, that can't be, it's not in anything but humans. And so I didn't want to tell them that until they all agreed on their letterhead and their letters they were sending me, which they did. And then I said, well, this is our lucky day, because this is a non-human primate. They're all excited about that. And they said, okay, well, we got to make sure that those parents breed again so we get some more babies. I said, well, no problem. I can make 1,000 baby monkeys with cystic fibrosis. And he got real quiet. Where am I? Yeah, because it's not a genetically transmitted disease as such. This is a simple nutritional deficiency of selenium during pregnancy or shortly after pregnancy during breastfeeding. And it's reversible, certainly preventable. It's reversible at some stages, the early stages of it, after the baby's born. And they just freaked out. And they fired me. They fired me in April of from the National College of Naturopathic Medicine. And the goal, of course, was to treat kids with cystic fibrosis, knowing what I knew, and I figured I could cure most of them, especially the younger ones. And I was starving because cystic fibrosis is thought to be a genetic disease of Eastern Europeans, certainly not Asians. And there's what's called an orphan disease. The government would give them free treatment, symptomatic treatment to be sure. It had nothing to do with really the cause of the disease, but they would help them with their respiration. They would help them by giving them enzymes for pancreatic function, that kind of stuff. But the eventuality was they all died somewhere in their teens. And then, so I was starving, so I began to learn how to take care of people with arthritis and fibromyalgia, things like muscular dystrophy, heart disease, back problems, periodontal disease, low thyroid, high blood pressure, all the usual stuff as a general practice physician would do. And I started to make a living. And then my wife, Dr. Milan, had political connections through her parents in China. And in doing the literature search, had to do that by hand in those days. There were no computers or PubMed or anything like that, so I had to do it all by hand. I ran into all this stuff in Keysham's disease in China. And once I saw that it was a known selenium deficiency, I knew immediately that could prove my point. And so through Milan's family's political connections, we were able to set up through several universities in Keyshan province to do autopsies on kids under the age of 10 that had died with cardiomyopathy, heart disease, sudden death, heart attacks. The goal being, if I was correct, and cystic fibrosis was caused by a selenium deficiency, there had to be a percentage of those kids who died of sudden cardiomyopathy, heart death, known to be, and by actual chemistry, shown to be a death caused by a selenium deficiency. There had to be some of those, if I was correct, the selenium deficiency also cause cystic fibrosis. I had to find some cystic fibrosis in those Chinese kids, even though in the literature it was supposed to be a genetically transmitted